All right, everybody! As you can tell, today we are dropping the gloves and finally getting down to discussing one of the great questions of our time. No, it's not did hand shoot first, but rather the undeniable truth. Why guitarists are such gullible morons! Hang on to your hats, folks. Here's 7 reasons why, and all you string fondlers out there are probably gonna need a warm glass of milk and your security blankie handy. Number 1, insecurity. Wait, did you not get the memo about the crippling self-doubt and crushing imposter syndrome that goes hand in hand with being a musician or a bass player? The usual factor of this is multiplied by the number of strings that you play, so guitarists can potentially be 12 times or more as bad. Well, luckily, the marketing strategies of countless companies and the intellectual black hole of guitar forums have a handy solution for you. Retail therapy! Yes, you too can buy your way to happiness spending money that you don't have on equipment that you don't need. The gear you have now can't possibly be perfectly adequate for your tuneless flailing. No, you must have new and better, and you must have it now! Whoever came up with the phrase, "a fool and his money are easily parted," probably sold guitars for a living, because if there is a more gullible group of consumers than guitarists, we haven't found them yet. Of course, those gigantic manufacturing corporations have your best musical aspirations at heart, not their bottom line. The jabbering shit monkeys on forums are absolutely concerned with making you a better musician rather than fueling their own self-important online narcissism. The truth is that there's no profit in boosting a guitarist's self-confidence in their abilities or their equipment, monetarily or otherwise. If that happens, then they'll spend more time practicing and writing instead of looking for confirmation bias on the internet. Much like the weight loss industry, the guitar industry is focused on the miracle solution rather than looking at the underlying causes and highlighting the hard work and discipline it takes to change. It's the small voice of constant negativity that chirps away at your hindbrain. All guitarists have to deal with that. Whether they like to admit it or not, it seems that it's just a constant factor. Now, if you can manage it and deal with it for the white noise that it is, all the better. If not, then you totally should buy the doodad that will make you sound and play exactly like Joe Satriani. That is, if Joe Satriani couldn't play guitar very well. Number 2, guitarists are fashion victims. I don't mean this by what guitarists are wearing, although frankly, sometimes you do have to wonder if they have a responsible adult checking their wardrobe, but rather what they are playing. Now, before Guns N' Roses oozed onto the scene in the late 80s, you couldn't have given away a Gibson Les Paul to the average guitar player. Guitars at the time were either very pointy, very shiny, eye-poppingly day-glow, or better yet, all three. Slash almost single-handedly made the Les Paul cool again. With the advent of a new bona fide guitar hero, a generation of players copycatted their way onto a shape that had fallen out of favor almost a decade previously. More than one guitarist regretted selling their dad's classic single cut for a hot pink shred machine with a Floyd Rose and a handle in the body. Of course, the greatest irony in all of this is that Slash was playing a Les Paul copy rather than an original because, as legend had it, he'd sold all his good equipment to fund his other recreational activities. Never let it be said that guitars don't make excellent life choices. Johnny Thunders. As usual, guitarists jumped onto the bandwagon, Gibson breathed a huge sigh of relief and sold a bazillion Les Pauls, which of course didn't stay in tune and broke when they fell over, but hey, at least you looked cool on your way to the repair shop. After a brief moment in the 80s, headless guitars were consigned to the oddities section of guitar history, roundly disliked except for a few diehards. Now, of course, the market is full of headless guitars at all price points. In fact, I got one right here. The V-Shape and Explorer have also fallen from favor and then enjoyed a renaissance as a body shape specifically within metal music, like this one here. What a shock! Guitarists are clearly easily swayed by fashion trends rather than by the actual virtues and strengths of the instrument in question. Buying something because you think it's good rather than verifying that it actually is good? Well, how could that end badly? Number 3, Excalibur syndrome. We all know guitarists who have an endless revolving door of guitars. This one is the one, only to have it either gather dust at the back of the studio or to be sold off for the next shiny new one. This is because guitarists, quite honestly, are fucking stupid. The worst offenders are the players who had the one and then foolishly sold it and then spent the rest of their days boring the rest of us whining about how they never should have sold that shiny, unique instrument. Well, boo fucking who, dumbass! Stop buying and selling your shit! It is an expensive stew of poor impulse control, readily available credit, and Excalibur syndrome. Excalibur syndrome. That insane proposition that there is only one perfect guitar for a particular player and that they will find it if only they search long enough and they don't run out of money. This, of course, is complete and utter bullshit! Are you actually arrogant enough to believe that you are so fucking special that only one instrument could possibly be good enough to grace your gifted hands? Go fuck yourself. There are so many great guitars out there that by simple probability alone, countless instruments will do exactly what you need them to do. The problem lies in that if you stop doing all that research, hunting, and spending, that you'll actually have to play the fucking thing. As Crosby, Stills, and Nash pointed out, love the one you're with. And no, bass players, that does not mean you can go and hump your guitar now. Please put your pants back on. Number 4, the vintage scam. For those of us of a certain age, there was a period of time when there were only 2 kinds of musical equipment, new and used. New stuff had new price and used stuff had a used price. See, it's pretty straightforward, right? Unfortunately, the collectors and marketers got their greedy fucking paws involved, and now the vintage label has been used to jack up prices on gear simply because it is old. And just because something is old does not mean it is good. Since all the fuss about stuff from the 50s and 60s has now rendered most of that era's equipment unattainable for the rest of us, it's interesting that the previously reviled 70s and even early 80s gear has shot up in price and marketability. Now, I'm not saying there's a cynical manipulation of the market based on supply here, but oh wait, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying, for fuck's sakes! Now, how does this travesty come to pass? Because you fucking idiots keep paying those prices! That's why! For the sake of argument, let's apply the same values to another commodity, and hopefully this nonsense will become just a little bit clearer. Let's say you'd like to buy a computer, so I will attempt to sell you one from 1986. Unfortunately, I can't sell you one from the 50s, although I'd love to, but there aren't any, and even if there were, they'd be the size of my fucking garage. This compact here is vintage. They just don't make them like this anymore. Yes, it's made from way older components, which are unreliable and they can't be fixed except by a very specialized technician. Oh, and you can't use it anywhere that's damp, hot, cold, or dry. You'd better leave it in a climate-controlled box, actually. Well, yes, of course, new computers are made from better components in state-of-the-art facilities, but technically they're both computers and do the same thing. Oh, and just smell the plastic, and wait till you feel this keyboard. Just think about that for a second. Would you ever buy a computer based solely on how the keyboard feels? In fact, would you buy any commodity other than clothes based on how it feels? Is this sinking in? We fetishize guitars because we love them just a little bit more than is healthy. Ultimately, a guitar is a plank with wires stretched across it, and remain that until we pick them up and play them. There's nothing worse than a guitar behind glass because they need to be played, not just looked at. So ask yourself a hard question. Are you a guitarist or a collector? Because those two are very different things, and you should make your purchases accordingly.
Number 5, the MacGuffin Effect.
According to Wikipedia, in a world of fiction, a MacGuffin is an object, device, or event that is necessary to the plot and motivation of the characters, but insignificant, unimportant, or irrelevant in itself. You guys know where I'm going with this. Tonewood! Tubes! Pick your poison, people! The examples are endless. The amount of bullshit that guitarists spout about this or that gadget or piece of equipment or component without any fucking evidence to back it up is breathtaking. Unless it has a measurable effect and can demonstrate change caused by an altering factor, it remains hearsay. If you can feel a difference or hear a difference, but you can't slap an oscilloscope on it, it's a personal opinion and not a fact. Moreover, it's a personal opinion that you have absolutely no fucking right to pass on as orthodox to your fellow guitarists, who we have already established are easily influenced idiots. Everyone's ears are different. My scriptwriter has quite severe hearing loss, and he literally can't hear a guitar tone, drum break, or piece of music the same way that I do. But he can definitely read a waveform the same way that I do. So what you hear cannot be taken as anything other than your personal experience until you actually fucking measure it. The variac is case in point. For those of you who don't know, a variac is a variable transformer that allows an increase or decrease in the voltage from a power supply to a piece of equipment. They can be used to help boost a weaker voltage or turn down one that's too hot. Experienced veteran musicians whose opinions I otherwise take very seriously will swear up and down that they can hear or feel a difference depending on how much voltage is fed to an amplifier. Unfortunately, it's a difference that I can't hear at all. Once again, the scientific method has to be applied before we make pronouncements on a given subject. Edward Van Halen is often credited with using the variac to change the sound of his amplifiers to help create his famous Brown sound. In his own words from an interview with the Smithsonian in 2017, he used the variac to reduce the master volume on a too loud Marshall amp and to boost the voltage to a different imported Marshall from England that the standard North American 110 volts couldn't power properly. The key word here is volume, not tone or color or feel. Volume. That's it. There is so much mythology around his guitar tone, and rightfully so because it's fucking legendary. It's easy to stray from fact into opinion, especially when dealing with one of the greatest guitarists of all time. Want me to stop harping on this? Want to prove me wrong? Go buy yourself some oscilloscopes and make some evidence-based videos. Show me where the sound of the amp is being changed when a variac is introduced, because I would love to be shown where I'm getting this wrong. Yeah, like that's ever gonna happen. Number 6, snake oil. As if guitarists creating their own nonsensical opinions on equipment wasn't bad enough, there's always the musical equipment industry waiting to sell you completely useless things for 4 easy payments of $29.95. There's a litany of truly useless things that guitarists have been dumb enough to buy, thinking it'll make them play better rather than just practicing more. Tortuous finger stretchers, color-fingered condoms, mammoth tusk picks, the list goes on and on. They used to lurk in the back pages of guitar magazines, but now they are all over the internet, and guitarists are still buying them in droves. I've got an example right here. Gold-plated guitar strings? Wow, I'm totally going to kick Ingve's ass with these! All of this useless crap can be best summed up by the phrase attributed to P.T. Barnum. There's one born every minute. Number 7, guitarists are addicts. Playing guitar can become addictive very quickly. Now think about all the guitarists that you know. Do they have addictive personalities? Exactly. So now you have a bunch of dopamine-hungry noodleheads chasing the next high. Is it any wonder that guitarists are prone to rash purchases, swayed easily by strong opinions and fashion trends? As addictions go, there are worse ones clearly, but unfortunately guitar players are often prone to all the other ones too. Maybe try getting addicted to practicing instead, and actually practicing rather than finding out how you can solo just like Edward Van Hendrix without learning skills. Now available on GuitarLessonMart.com for just 4 easy payments of $29.99. Get it now! Guitars can, of course, those giant men. If that before Guns N' Roses, yeah, there we go. Guitars at the guitar. Well, let's do that one more time. Fuck. Roll some bloopers at the end. That one's gonna be fun. Thanks, Sis.